The date is February 21st, 2019. MotorJam and I, its Maximum, are speedrunning Red Ball 4 Volume 1, a popular Flash game made back in 2012. For weeks, we had been competing against each other, in hopes of becoming the first person to complete the game in less than 3 minutes and 40 seconds. We both had poured thousands of attempts in hopes of reaching this goal, but we had both ended up short of the mark. My personal best set at a time of 3 minutes, 40 seconds, and 300 milliseconds, while MotorJam's personal best set at just 3 frames faster, with a time of 3 minutes, 40 seconds, and 200 milliseconds. With MotorJam set to start streaming in just 30 minutes, I began doing some offline runs, hoping to get sub 3 minutes and 40 seconds before MotorJam started his runs. The elusive barrier could be broken any day now, and I was doing my best to stay one step ahead of MotorJam. But, hold on. Why are MotorJam and I trying to speedrun and optimize such a short, simplistic Flash game that looks like it was made for children? What was the outcome of this day? What were the events that led up to this point in time? Let's talk about that. This is the world record history of Red Ball 4 Volume 1. Red Ball 4 Volume 1 is the 4th installment of the mainline Red Ball series. From a movement standpoint, Red Ball is only able to move left, right, and jump. Unlike previous games in the series, jump height does not change depending on how long the jump key is pressed. One interesting tidbit is that Red Ball is able to jump for quite a while after rolling off a platform, at a reduced jump height. Red Ball has 3 hit points in the form of hearts. Red Ball dies after taking 3 hits from enemies, landing in water, falling in a pit, or being crushed. Upon death, Red Ball will be sent to the last collected checkpoint, which also happens if a puzzle is failed or the R button is pressed. The game is split into 15 levels, the first 14 being platforming levels with puzzles, enemies, and obstacles sprinkled within, and the last level being the boss fight, which is made up of 3 phases. On the first phase, the boss rolls to the other side of the screen and then becomes vulnerable for a hit. After 3 hits, Phase 2 begins, where there are normal and armored enemies to dodge and defeat. In the last phase, the boss bounces around the screen and becomes vulnerable after hitting the ground either 4 or 5 times. The last phase is by far the most unpredictable and erratic, so it ended up becoming a major run killer once the game became more optimized. After the game was released in 2012, it took a while for speedrunners to get a hold of it. The first recorded speedrun of this game was with a time of 7 minutes and 29 seconds on the 30th of November 2014 by speedrunner Jez. This run was, for all intents and purposes, a fast, casual playthrough of the game. All puzzles were completed like they were supposed to be, and no real speedrunning strategies were displayed in the platforming levels, aside from maybe hitting this enemy in 13 to make it move out of the way a bit faster. However, in the boss level, Jess had figured out that purposefully taking damage while the boss is rolling to the other side of the screen will cause the boss to reverse its direction and become vulnerable at the same wall that it started, saving a couple of seconds each time that it is performed. Jess also restarted at the start of Phase 2 to get back to 3 hearts, which could have been used to perform the same boss manipulation technique in Phase 2, but damage inflicted by the enemies prevented this from being possible. This run stood as the world record for 3 months, mainly due to a lack of competition and the desire to find new strategies. However, this run was about to be uprooted by a discovery that would completely change the future of the speed game. That's right, double jumping is possible in Red Ball 4 Volume 1, a glitch that was completely unknown by the game's developer, Evgeny Fedosov. In an email conversation that I later had with him, he said, "It was a long time ago I created Red Ball 4 Volume 1, so it contains some bugs, but I think speedrunners are happy to find them. After performing a single jump, there is a single frame where another jump input can be executed, resulting in a double jump. With this new strategy, virtually every single puzzle in the game could be skipped, and it became possible to reach greater speeds than ever before. Once leisurely gameplay had been replaced with precise double jumps and a lot of keyboard abuse. With this new tool, the speedruns of the game were able to be completed much, much faster, and the possibilities for new strategies became endless. The first world record to make use of double jumping was a 5-minute, 11-second time by once avid Flash speedrunner Jumpylove. on the 28th of February 2015. Unfortunately, the speedrun appears to have been lost to time, as the Twitch VOD for the record no longer exists. The next record to make use of double jumping was a 4 minute and 36 second time on the 1st of May 2015, also by Jumpy Luff. In just 6 months, double jumping had taken the world record of the game down by almost 3 minutes. For a game this short, that was a really big deal. This run also marked the first sub 5 minute run of the game. Jumpy was able to put together a really good run for the time, with most of his time loss coming from missed double jumps at some points in the run. An understandable reality for such a difficult trick to perform consistently. Throughout the run, most puzzles are partially or completely ignored, skipped via double jumping. One puzzle that Jumpy did not skip was in level 12, where he was forced to push this boulder down the hill because if the boulder is not pushed, the game counts it as a puzzle fail and forces a restart. In the boss level, boss manipulation was more effectively used in Phase 1 compared to Jez's 7 minute and 29 second run. But Jumpy elected to not restart at the beginning of Phase 2 to take further advantage of it. Jumpy Luff held the record for over 2.5 years, until a speedrunner named Banana Nana beat it with a time of 4 minutes and 16 seconds on the 10th of November 2017. However, between these two runs, former world record holder Jez got a run with a time of 4 minutes 29 seconds on the 6th of April 2016. An interesting tidbit about this run is that, as of the time of writing this, it is the most viewed Red Ball speedrun on YouTube with over 1.5 million views. Back to the speedrun itself, the movement displayed in Jez's run was very similar to Jumpy's movement, but there are some key differences that set them apart. First of all, Jez figured out that, in level 12, instead of pushing the boulder all the way down the hill, one could simply nudge the boulder and then jump over it, preventing the forced reset, while also saving a bit of time. Also, Jez reset at the beginning of the Phase 2 of the boss, allowing him to further manipulate the boss and save more time. This run would have been a new record in the first ever sub 4 minute and 30 second run. However, it turns out that this run made use of a double jumping macro to hit the spacebar twice in succession with a single button press. This didn't guarantee 100% consistent double jumps for a variety of reasons that I won't get into, but it was surely enough to make this run invalid. But back to Banana Nana's run. How was he able to top Jumpy Luff's extremely solid time by over 20 seconds? Well, it turns out that Banana Nana was just really good at double jumping. In Banana Nana's 4 minute and 16 second run, you'd be hard pressed to find a single missed double jump. He solidified the fact that, to be good at this game, you had to be extremely consistent with double jumping. He also started incorporating more double jumps into the run, using them whenever it was possible. The level with the biggest time difference between the 4 minute 16 second run and the 4 minute 36 second run was level 11. Here, take a look. Banana Nana also got the infamous triple jump strat in level 5, caused by performing a single jump into the ramp and then performing a double jump right after. One thing you may notice about this run is that Banana Nana had a personal best of 5 minutes and 14 seconds before achieving this time. Because of this, some people could see his 4:16 as a fluke. But I see it as an amazing example of Banana Nana's speedrunning mentality at the time. If he had made a mistake, he would reset. He wasn't looking to inch his way towards the record. He wanted to get it all in one piece. Thankfully, Banana Nana wasn't done, as he came back on the 23rd of March, 2018 with a time of 4 minutes, 3 seconds. He managed to accomplish this feat partially because of a new strategy in level 10, where the first chasm is completely double jumped over. This strat was really inconsistent, mainly because the game only maintained one speed between levels 9 and 10 about 50% of the time. The game seems to randomly drop Red Ball speed between levels, an annoying, run-killing reality that still isn't fully understood to this day. Thankfully, Banana Nana was able to maintain speed and perform the strategy, though the rest of his 10 was a bit sloppy. Another big improvement came in levels 12, 13, and 15. Reflecting on this run, Banana Nana said, "Wow, looks like sub 4 minutes is possible. Maybe I'll go for it someday, but not soon." Indeed, sub 4 was now possible, but it seemed like Banana Nana didn't really have the motivation to go for it yet. However, after about a month, his hibernation was sharply interrupted. Speedrunner MotorJam ousted Banana Nana by just half a second. Banana Nana now had a reason to go for sub 4, as if he didn't get it soon, MotorJam would beat him to it. And on the 1st of May 2018, exactly 3 years after the 5-minute barrier was first broken by Jumpy Love, Banana Nana was on quite the run. It was now all down to the boss. And with the heard round the world, the fruit, the myth, the legend had done it. A 3-minute, 58-second run was now in Banana Nana's possession, the very first sub 4. With this time, he retired from speedrunning Red Ball 4 Volume 1, and went down in history as a Red Ball legend. So, what's next? Unlike Banana Nana, MotorJam wasn't quite done with the game yet. He still wanted to take down Banana Nana's record and then lay the game to rest himself as the world record holder. So he kept grinding and grinding, but it wasn't until the 30th of July that his goal was finally realized. So yes, despite a sloppy boss and a couple of mistakes throughout the run, he got a 337.200. Reflecting on this run, he said, "I finally did it." Some new strats were used, but some sloppy execution throughout the run, such as level 7, 8, and 13. I also choked a bit on the boss, along with him not giving me any cream cheese. Sub 345 is totally possible, and sub 340 is theoretically possible if you were a god. So, hold on a minute. The game had just gone from sub 4 looking like an unbreakable barrier, to sub 340 looking like the new goal. How prophetic of you, MotorJam. With new strategies being discovered every day, and the possibility for new strategies in the future, MotorJam saw the true potential of how far the game's world record could truly go down. But, while MotorJam was thinking about what the future could be, it started to come into fruition. That was such a fluke. That's literally all I can say. I'm not gonna PB for a long time after that. I'm shaking. That was a 351. So, Motor Jam, you can take this back for sure, and you will take this back because you're a lot better at this game than I am. But that just happened. Against all odds, and despite doubting my abilities, I had risen up the ranks in just 8 days, and took the record, something that I didn't even foresee as a possibility at the time. Still in shock, I said, "I don't deserve this time, but I am grateful for what I received." It was true. Compared to Motor Jam, I had put in a minimal amount of effort into the game, but it turned out that the amount of time and effort put into the game by both of us was about to skyrocket, for a rivalry had just been born. Motor Jam picked himself back up and decided that, to improve his consistency and discover new backups, he would do 100 no-reset runs of the game. On the 7th of November, 2018, on his 13 no-reset run, this happened. A very sloppy level 5 had put Motor Jam 7.8 seconds behind 359 pace. However, Motor Jam had some new tricks up his sleeve. By resetting at this flag in level 9, he was able to transition well into level 10 almost 100% of the time. This also set him up for getting a good jump off this spoke, saving even more time. This maneuver put him 1.3 seconds ahead of 359 pace on his splits. He eventually went for some very risky double jumps in 13 that could have killed the run if he missed them. He nailed the boss, and he got a 354.483, beating me by around 0.3 seconds. And while I was focusing on the other Red Ball 4 volumes, Motor Jam didn't stop playing. He still had about 8 seconds to shave off, remember?
Tombstones or doomstones?
Doomstones.
That's it, boys! That's it! He did it. On the 11th of January, 2019, he shaved off those 8 seconds. He nailed level 3. He nailed level 5. He nailed level 10. He nailed level 12. Motor Jam was refining his movement to a level never seen before. And he proved that he was right. Sub 345 was indeed possible. And unless I did some catching up, Motor Jam would undoubtedly be the first person to get it. Dude, I got it! I got the 4X! On the 19th of January, 2019, Motor Jam and I began streaming attempts, both with hopes of becoming the first person to get the first sub 3 minute and 45 second time. We both streamed for over 4 hours, a normal T for Motor Jam, but a rarity for me. Normally I got burned out after playing the game for more than an hour at a time, simply because of the constant resets and revisits to level 1. But something about breaking this barrier, streaming with Motor Jam, and talking to his friends kept me going. This is what happened that day. If I had predicted the first one correctly, that would have been a 45, man.
Dude, so close.
No. That 4-hour stream had put me back on top, and this is what I had to say. The possibility of a sub 3 minute 40 second run is extremely real, and new strats appear to be on the horizon. This game is nowhere near dead. Red Ball be crazy, man. MotorJam once said that sub 340 is theoretically possible if you were a god. So that begs the question, who was it gonna be? Before we talk about the quest for this time, we must first talk about a timing rule change that happened during this time. You may have noticed that, up until now, every single person started their timer when level 1 was pressed. They had to carefully maneuver their mouse to the bottom right corner of the game window and then hit the cutscene skip button. While most people were spending more than half a second on the cutscene each run because of this, MotorJam had a trick up his sleeve. He put the game window on the bottom right corner of his monitor. This made it very easy for him to hit the skip button, as the bounds of the monitor lined up his mouse on the skip button. So, in some instances, the cutscene didn't even have a chance to start playing. However, this small time save was quite inconsistent. With both MotorJam and I getting very annoyed with this reality, we decided to change the timing rules. Now, timing started on the first frame that Red Ball appeared on the screen in level 1, or the first frame that control was gained over the character. This timing rule caused all previous runs to have to be retimed. So, if you're wondering why most previous records had a much different time than what their splits showed, well, maybe except for MotorJam's runs, then that's why. With that being said, let's resume. So, you may be wondering about the dog on screen right now. Well, it turns out that all MotorJam needed to break the record was the immense, unmistakable power of the dog cam. This 342 by MotorJam was the first run to make use of a new boulder skip in level 3, which made use of this curved corner to yield the perfect angle to jump off the top of the boulder, finishing the level without losing any speed. This strat had been discovered by accident by Bananana less than a year prior, but it was just now being used in runs. MotorJam lost all of his speed on the transition from level 6 to level 7, which happened about as often as the level 9 to 10 transition that plagued runs for months, before the reset strat was discovered. Thankfully, unlike losing speed between 9 and 10, this only lost him about a second. He got a 56 boss, and decided to imitate a very familiar pop-off at the run's conclusion.
Let's go! I did it! I did it!
I'm telling you, the shenanigans that were going on around this time between us were next level. To take back the record the next day, I had to arm myself with a force much greater than dog cam. My secret? Chinese food. I golded level 5. I golded level 6. I kept speed going into level 7. I golded level 13. The stars had aligned. I entered the boss with a 340 best possible time. However, if I was able to get a 54 boss, something that was well within the realm of possibility, I would beat my gold by enough to get the first 339. Here's what happened. First part of phase 3. 4 bounces. Second part of phase 3. 5 bounces. If I got a 4 bounce, this would be it. But it was a 5 bounce. Just short, not lucky enough. The proximity of this run to 339 had left me saying this. Note that I had to record my thoughts later due to a recording mishap.
That is too close to 339. Like, that is too close. I'm eating Chinese food right now, okay? Like, that, I was eating lunch.
February 2nd, 2019. MotorJam entered the boss about a second ahead of the world record, meaning that he only needed a mid-56 boss to break the barrier. Phase 3 began. 4. Another 4. Some hesitation after the second hit meant that he needed another 4 to get the 339. But he got a 5. Though he broke the world record by 3 frames with a 340.200, better luck would have gotten him a 339, as would have been the case with my 340.300. Also, on this day, while I was playing all of the Red Ball 4 volumes in a multiple Red Ball games speedrun, this happened. the first 53 boss. He had given me a 4-4-4 pattern. I barely spared any time before each hit. This was a great example of my mindset when playing the boss. I would predict whether it was going to be a 4 or 5 bounce by looking at the previous jump height. If I was right, it would save me a small but significant chunk of time. However, if I was wrong, I would die and the run was over. And that is everything significant that happened before that fateful day of February 21st, 2019, which kicked off this video. And, without further ado, this is what happened that day. All I needed was a low 56 boss to secure 339. So I got a 54 boss instead.
Yes! I got it! Let's go! I beat Motor Jam. I beat him. I beat him. I beat him. And I got a 54 boss. I got a 54 boss, dude. Yes! I did it! That's it. That's it.
Next, I spread the news to Motor Jam once he started his stream.
I love that glitch, dude. Oh my gosh.
And that is not where the world record stands today. Look at that second best. Oh my god. I knew that was 336. Let's go, dude. The possibility of a 329 happening sparked something in me. I had to get it, and I would do whatever it took to achieve this milestone. This was my first true sub 330 pace in the late game. If I nailed this last double jump in 11, I would be 5 seconds ahead of my personal best. Pixels off. No matter, I kept on grinding.
Alright.
Two seconds away, one step closer to 329. At this point, it could happen any run now. And on the 5th of August 2019, I had my first opportunity. Best possible time going into the boss was at 327. I only needed a 55 boss. First part of phase 3, a 5. Second part, I predicted a 5, but instead, the game had given me a 4. The game gave me just the right amount of luck, but I misread the pattern. I hesitated. No matter, if the next part was a 4 bounce, this was it. However, in Red Ball 4 Volume 1, there's no such thing as a free lunch. I got a new world record of a 330, but I lost 329. The 7th of August, 2019. Another 327 best possible time going into the boss. Once again, I only needed a 55 boss. I was worried about Phase 3, but while I was building my nerves for Phase 3, I missed killing this enemy in Phase 2 by pixels. I needed triple 4s in Phase 3 to get the 329. The first part, a 5. I was already doomed. 330.300, a new world record by a 1/6 of a second. But once again, just short of the 329. At this point, I accounted that I had lost 7 sub 330 best possible time paces into the boss. I couldn't do it. I was just short every single time. How many more runs would I have to lose? I couldn't think about that. To break this barrier, I had to cast aside all of my previous misfortune and mistakes and focus on the task at hand. I couldn't give up. Oh, finally. Finally. Oh, what a relief, dude.